everyone. Welcome to the 5-Year Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, it's time to wake up to another hop variety, get heated up with my homebrew, travel to Southern Ohio and visit with Kelly Montgomery from Third Eye Brewing in Cincinnati, and review Jersey Devil Dog from Abomination Brewing. In this segment of Looking for Lupulin, it's time to wake up and smell the hops. Horticulture and Food Research Institute of New Zealand Limited is best known for developing new varieties of kiwi fruit. In 2000, they released the hop variety Pacific Sunrise, which has parentage that includes late cluster, fuggle, a European male, and a New Zealand male. Since 2021, New Zealand's hop revolution has been growing it on a commercial scale. I love the name. Here in the Western Hemisphere, the sun always sets in the west. Since New Zealand is in the Eastern Hemisphere, it's sunny side up on the Pacific. Furthermore, because it is one of the countries that is closest to the international dateline, it sees the dawn first each day. Pretty awesome. So just like other varieties from the Southern Hemisphere, this hop is very resilient and a vigorous grower. Pacific Sunrise has a piney or woodsy aroma which is great for hop-forward beers. The flavor profile leans toward a lemon or orange citrus. Some think it also offers notes of melon or mango, as well as stone fruit or berry, the latter of which reminds me of the description used for Mosaic hops. According to Julian Healy's The Hops List, Pacific Sunrise has an alpha acid content of 12.5 to 14.5%, and a beta acid content of 6 to 6.5%. This hop retains an impressive 60 to 70% alpha acid after 6 months of storage. I cannot find a whole lot of information on overall acreage for Pacific Sunrise. It seems to be almost a clandestine operation in that regard. I have my suspicion that it just doesn't have the swagger and sexiness of some of today's popular aromatic hop varieties. Because of the high alpha acid content, Pacific Sunrise hops are usually used as bittering hops in lagers, American pale ales, and West Coast IPAs, though, like other hop varieties, brewers might think outside the box using this one and try it in a different variety. Since it seems like it might be a bit of a challenge to find Pacific Sunrise, homebrewers might use Pacific Gem as a substitute. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, the next project bubbles over. After mash out, it was time to get this brew boiling. Prior to the sparge, the wort was a deep brown color, which was a bit different than previous beers I've brewed. Very exciting. You know, I've heard brewers say that the mash step is their favorite since the smell of the warming malt just absolutely fills the brew house. I have to admit, there is something comforting and even familiar about this. In fact, the first time I brewed an all-grain batch early in the morning, my wife entered the kitchen and wondered what I'd made for breakfast. Once the wort was up to a nice rolling boil, I dropped in the East Kent Golding hops to begin the isomerization process for the entirety of the 60 minutes. I was excited. East Kent Golding hops were also new to me as a brewer. The fluffy foam was a light brown caramel color, and oh, it smelled so good. These hops are the top of the heap for English aroma hops and have a great spicy aroma. That makes these hops great for English-style ales. Next time, the yeast feast begins. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. This episode, I'm excited to sit down with Kelly Montgomery from Third Eye Brewing in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is a bit of a first for me. I've neither visited nor tasted anything from this brewery. However, after hearing what Justin from the Ohio Craft Brewers Association had to say about Third Eye, I reached out immediately for an interview, and I am so glad that I did. Listen in as Kelly and I talk about some pretty amazing things going on in the northern suburbs of the Queen City. Welcome to Barstool Banter. I'm sitting down virtually with Kelly Montgomery from Third Eye Brewing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Kelly, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the podcast.
Absolutely, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. I will admit I have not been to Third Eye as of yet. I have not enjoyed anything from Third Eye as of yet. So I'm going into this with my third eye kind of blind here. So I'm happy to get the chance to hear a little bit more. Can you tell me, first of all, what is your role there at the brewery?
So I'm the head brewer at Third Eye Brewing Company. I'm also one of the co-owners here.
Okay. How long has Third Eye Brewing been open?
We opened up right during COVID in June of 2020. So we
Okay.
were right smack in the middle of all the COVID craziness.
It's interesting, yours is not unique in that sense. I've heard other breweries who've said the same thing. Basically, they've said, well, the process was started long before COVID came around, and it wasn't until early 2020 or mid 2020 that funding came through or the property got closed on. Everything came together and you just had to kind of roll with it. So, how did you manage to roll through that, opening right in the middle of madness?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a unique situation to go through. Just opening up a brewery during COVID. It was tough because you can only have so many people in the brewery. They got to be so many feet apart. We had to get really creative. We probably started canning a lot sooner than we wanted to, just so we could have some sort of to-go product or something to sell in case they did shut the tap rooms completely down. But it was also kind of nice. It kind of let us get the kinks out since there were only, you weren't allowed to open full bore. Kind of slowed down, kind of get our feet under us a little bit too.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Everything got accelerated with COVID in a lot of different areas. So fortunately, I guess you had the capability right up front to do canning.
There was something that was like a COVID rule where that you were allowed to basically, and it's a rule that you normally can't do, but we were able to put a tank of beer on a truck and then driving it over to another brewery that had a canning line, and then they would can it for us, and then we'd bring the empty tank back. And there was a little provision during COVID that allowed us to do that, that allowed us to can. Shortly after that, it was a great proof of concept to know that the cans were selling, and probably made us get a canning line a lot sooner than we ever probably imagined.
I had no idea. That's something new that I've not heard before from other brewers that I've talked to. That was definitely, I guess, a nice exception that the government allowed that certainly helped you early on.
Yeah.
How many locations does Third Eye have?
The answer as of today is one. If you ask me in 2 weeks, I'd say two. I'm sitting in our new production facility, which is going to be, we haven't officially announced the grand opening, but it's probably going to be around November 18th, 19th.
Well, hey, I like the feature wall behind there. That is really cool.
We have a similar mural at our original location. I think,
Okay.
it was a great way to kind of tie in the new location to have the same artist come out and do a mural here as well. We kind of have that funky, weird vibe thing going on here. And I think the mural's a great showcase of some of that.
Yeah, I love it.
Our original location's about 9,000 square foot. This one with production facility and tap room and kitchen and everything's around 20,000 square foot. So quite a bit bigger. And we have the capacity to brew about 5 or 6 times as much beer as we could in the old one.
Wow. Going to 5 or 6 times the production capacity, that's really going to help you out with distribution, I assume, down the road. And clearly, Third Eye's in demand right now.
Our original tap room in Sharonville, basically a suburb outside of Cincinnati, we were pretty much maxed out our first year, most of the beer being sold in the tap room. We could only do about 1,500 barrels in Sharonville.
Wow.
And sales was one beer, and we didn't have any to give them. And we were thinking about adding on to the building, and it was almost same price just to open up a bigger warehouse somewhere. So that's pretty much what we did. We
Okay.
have the ability to do about 8 to 10,000 barrels a year here.
Is it near the Sharonville facility then?
It's about 20 minutes away. Officially, the new facility is in the city of Hamilton, kind of a up and coming city in Cincinnati. There's a ton of development, a ton of really great things happening in Hamilton, Ohio right now. So it's a good time to be here as well.
Great. Well, hey, congratulations on the upcoming expansion. I think that's fantastic. One of the things that Justin and I were talking about a little bit is that the industry in itself overall seems to be in a little bit more of a decline the last
Right.
couple of years. So it's great that you're seeing at least steady and rising sales for your product.
Yeah, I thought we were going to be doing 3,000 barrels a year here. We brewed about 10 batches here, and the kind of the pent up demand, we may be at 4,600 after our first year. So it's definitely, I'm sure it'll get to a point where it starts to slow, but there's a little bit of pent up demand there that we can capture at the moment.
Great. I think Third Eye Brewing actually made national news recently with the beer. Can you tell my audience what happened for Third Eye?
We won Brewery of the Year at the Great American Beer Fest. We got 4 medals out of the competition. Yeah, Brewery of the Year, Brewmaster of the Year. So we're all very excited about that. And it was kind of great timing also with opening up the new place. So
Yeah, fantastic. So again, congratulations on that. Congratulations to you and your brew team as well. You must be doing something right there, Kelly.
we try.
With the 4 medals that you won, so what 4 beers did you place with?
One was an Imperial chocolate stout called Double Astral. It's a super thick, chewy chocolate stout. You know, it's vanilla, tons of cocoa nibs, and you can almost, drink it with a fork. It's thick. And it's just kind of a great after dinner beer or kind of a dessert beer. People are pouring it over ice cream or, doing their cereal with it. It's
That's what I was thinking. Something out of the box with that sounds great.
yes, but it's vanilla and chocolate. So kind of something we've been tinkering with that recipe for a while, and I think we finally hit all the right notes on that batch.
Well, that sounds delicious. Obviously, you're opening the production facility. Beyond that, what else does the national recognition do for you as a brewery?
I mean, one thing I think it helps is we're starting to get into more distribution. I think it helps our sales team, make a sale, being able to talk about the awards and some of the medals. I think it probably helps us maybe get into, if we ever decide to get into some bigger chains like Kroger's or what have you. I think that'll be something we can definitely bring up in the sales conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely helps on that regard.
Yeah. To that effect, I mean, you do have canning capability now. That's clear. Distribution wise, are you still mainly distributing just in Ohio at the moment
Yeah,
regionally?
it's all Ohio. We're self-distributing. We're a
Okay.
self-distributing state. So we can, as a company, we can drop off the beer. We can collect the checks. We can make the sales. So we have a very small sales team at the moment, and we're just doing it one bar or restaurant at a time at the moment.
Okay. Well, as you probably know, also there is some change for the franchise law that's in the Ohio Senate at the moment that Justin and his team at the OCBA are trying to push for. So I'm glad to hear that you aren't locked into any kind of a contract at the moment as
Right.
far as distribution goes. So do you anticipate down the road perhaps going into some sort of a franchise distribution or?
I think the OCBA, I think they've done a great job spearheading this franchise law. I think if those laws get a little more favorable, it'll be a lot easier for us to make that decision. At some point, though, regardless, I think we'll probably have to get a distributor at some point. But we're gonna try to just grow at grassroots for the moment and see how far we can get on our own. But if they change that law, that definitely makes that decision a lot easier.
So how far north do you distribute with Third Eye?
I would say Columbus, and then a little bit north of Columbus. I think there's like Steuben, Marysville, maybe.
Okay.
I think we have a few places, like literally 2 places that are north of Columbus, but at the moment, that's about as far as we get.
And are those mainly restaurants and bars? Are they also liquor stores?
Most of what we do now are more of craft beer bars. We haven't, really got in. There's probably no convenient type shops unless it's a craft beer focus. Most of the things are kind of the low hanging fruit that we have now.
Yeah.
They want craft beer, that's what they sell, and we haven't ventured too far off that path.
So I live in the far northwest corner, so I have not yet seen it in our region, but I am going to be going to Columbus, so I will have to keep my eye out for Third Eye to be on tap somewhere. So how long have you personally been brewing?
I started in college at Ohio State. I wasn't quite old enough to drink beer, and there was a homebrew shop on campus. So me and my roommate were like, "Well, we're gonna make our own beer." And we started making our own beer, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I told my parents immediately I was dropping out of college and going to brew school, and they said no. It was a terrible idea. So I kept brewing in the garage, in the basement, and kitchen for the next 20 years, dreaming about opening up a brewery someday. So it's probably mid 90s is when I started.
Okay. So did you ever end up making it to brew school?
Never made it to brew school. It was always just in the kitchen, in the house, in the home, some homebrew clubs, doing some, events like that. But I guess how I broke into the industry is I had an uncle that was always pushing me to enter contests. I was never really entering contests, and I started entering local contests and doing pretty well. And then my uncle just kept bothering me to do some of the more national ones. And there was one called Hop Courage out of California that was, it was basically sponsored by Rogue. So the winning brewer got to brew their homebrew recipe at Rogue. And I didn't want to pay for the shipping, one, and I didn't think I'd win. But my uncle just kept bugging me, like literally bugging me to enter. So finally, I put 3 beers in the competition, and away they went. And my brother-in-law and myself, we ended up winning the whole competition. So we got to brew our beer, and that's kind of what started me down to, I guess, the professional path. Was able to get some investors at that point and get a brewery open. So
that's a great story. And I think a lot of brewers are probably in the same boat as you. It's like, well, I enjoy it. I'm not really sure I want to really dive headfirst into it until you get that one chance where, somebody validates everything you're doing. You're like, okay, I am doing something right. And all these years I've been putting into this, I figured it out. I've dialed it in, and let's take it to the next level. Did you do anything professionally before you opened Third Eye?
No. So my first brewery, and I'm still an owner there, was Brink Brewing Company. And so I started Brink with my brother and brother-in-law and a friend of mine. And it's a very small operation, kind of a 7-barrel neighborhood brewery. I got my start there.
Okay. Well, I started home brewing this year. It's been a lot of fun. My first batch was an extract kit from Northern Brewer. It was a session IPA. It didn't turn out terrible. And I thought, okay, well, let's try the all grain because everybody talks about all grain.
Yeah.
I was coming home from Florida in February and stopped at Listerman, which is down your way. And stopped in, and Alan helped me out with all my ingredients for I ended up brewing a passion fruit.
Mullerman?
Yeah. Yes, sir. He got me into the whole brew in the bag thing, and I brewed up my first all grain, which was a passion fruit sour ale, which turned out really well. I conditioned it with fresh passion fruit that I had brought back from the host we were staying with in Florida. So I was pretty stoked about that. So it's been a lot of fun. So what kind of advice would you give to someone such as me that's a novice home brewer?
I think the quickest route to making really good beer is to join a homebrew club and go to a brew out, and you're going to see tons of different people doing it a ton of different ways, and they're all going to be making good beer, doing it in a completely different way. And I think I learned more from those brew outs and just watching other people that have been, doing it for a long time and learning their tricks and their tips. And that was kind of the route I went, and also just tons of reading, but tons of great books out there too.
Yeah, we're fortunate to live in a time for the home brewer where there are a lot of resources available, not only online, but in, book form. The materials, the grain, the hops, the yeast, everything is fresh, pretty easily accessible, fairly affordable. So you can really get some good beer and experiment a lot as a home brewer without having to invest a ton of money into it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a great hobby. I think it's just cool to be making your own beer,
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And, I know probably for you, that's the first time somebody, had one of your professionally brewed beers, tasting it, and they're like, oh, this is great. The same kind of thing, you hand over a bottle to your friend, you're like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, this is good, Okay.
Right.
I haven't killed you with it, so that's a start. Currently, I'm still using that 1 gallon fermenter, so I'm just doing 1 gallon batches at a time.
Great, great.
So, because I can turn the beer around fairly quickly, again, very low overhead. I don't have a whole lot of friends in the area that I can share with at the moment. Don't have any homebrew clubs in my area because it's kind of small and rural. So down the road, I'm looking forward to maybe bumping up to a 3 or a 5 gallon, and then also
Great.
doing the same thing you said, join a homebrew club and try to get some more experience and some advice.
Yeah, I think those 1 gallon batches are a great way to do a lot of neat experiments too. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to start out. You don't have to mess up a whole 5 gallons. You can kind of experiment and play around with a smaller quantity, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yes. So you mentioned brew out.
In Cincinnati, we call them brew outs, and we basically have these portable, homebrew setups that you could drive around with. You could, put them in your car and take them somewhere, propane burners. And a lot of people would cut the tops off the kegs. And that's basically your pot or your kettle. And just using basically propane, almost like your deep fryer turkey burners, and a keg with the top cut off, preferably not a third eye keg because we need them. But
Okay.
and a lot of people will show up. No, everybody will have their own little setup, but for the most part, it's usually some sort of propane or at least get something to a boil. And some of these brew outs have electric, where if you want to bring a pump or whatever you need electric for, maybe an electric portable system. And get to see everybody's system, how they do it. Back when I was really involved in homebrew clubs, you might one brew out, there might be 3 people brewing, another there might be 20. Sometimes a brewery would host it, and you get to use the brewery water, you get to use that brewery's yeast, and just kind of made it more fun.
Oh, neat.
At least in the summertime, it seemed like there'd be at least one, once a month, and fun to talk to people about beer and see how they're doing it and see all their crazy ideas and taste their stuff. A lot of fun.
Yeah. And that is one thing that I've noticed with the craft industry. I've spoken to, several brewers, owners. Everybody's always so willing to give you a tip or a trick. If you ask a question, they're very happy to answer it. It's like there really is no limit to that, sharing their experience, which I think is also really nice.
Yeah, I don't know of any other industry that is this friendly and just wanting to help and give tips and, help people make delicious beer. I used to do a lot of bass fishing. No one's telling me where their fishing spots are, what lure they're using, but when it comes to beer, though, plenty of people help you out. It's amazing.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking a collaboration beer between Abomination Brewing in North Haven, Connecticut, an alternate ending beer company in Aberdeen, New Jersey called Jersey Devil Fog. So I kind of like the name on this as well. It's kind of a mashup, right? Because you've got Jersey Devil and Devil Fog. From the brewers, double dry hopped, double IPA with Pacific Sunrise and Rowaka CGX hops. Without further delay, so this is an 8.6% ABV double IPA. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Everyman, this is not exactly a single hop beer. However, I have had a few from Abomination before and just know that they are going to be spot on with their flavor. I know the devil's in the details, so I admit that I might be taking a chance here with this addition of Rowaka hops. What I expect is that it should bring out the fruit and citrus flavors of Pacific Sunrise. So as I pour this out into my pint glass, I am definitely getting a lot of very sweet citrusy aroma. This beer pours a straw color. It is super hazy. I cannot see through it at all. It has a nice fluffy white head on it that's just slowly dissipating here. It's actually a very beautiful looking pour, if I do say so myself. So again, aromatic wise, definitely getting a lot of citrus. Definitely getting an orange forward, more of a sweet aroma on it. And again, that's another one of those hallmarks from the Pacific Sunrise hops. I'd say so far, everything's spot on. The way the Pacific Sunrise is playing nicely with their Awaka hops. The profiles of the sweet fruit, the citrus, they're definitely really complementing each other. So I guess that really kind of goes along with the whole idea of a collaboration, doesn't it? All right, so here, first sip impression. Oh yeah. I would say this is definitely giving me a little bit more of an earthy hop bite on it. It's not overly bitter, but clearly I know that there is something bitter going on here. It's almost got a spicy feel to it on the palate, which is very interesting. I would say this ranges somewhere between a medium body to a full bodied kind of beer. It definitely has a little bit of a viscous kind of feel as it coats the tongue. Pillowy soft is one of those things that people will talk about. So on the finish is definitely pushing the limits with a citrus hop bitterness. I'm getting more of that grapefruit kind of bitterness on the end that almost dries the palate. Man, I know I say it all the time, but I love this beer. This is such a good beer. Abomination knows what they're doing. As I said, I've had several beers from them before. I know that their hazy IPA game in general is very solid. Yeah, I could drink this all day. At 8.6% though, might be an early bedtime for me. But wow, overall, this is a solid beer. Everything I expected from the Pacific Sunrise hops are here. A little bit of that earthiness, the good strong citrusy flavors, the sweet kind of aroma to it. It's just such a solid beer. And yeah, on the nose, just a really deep, complex, citrusy aroma on it. So I give this one a solid 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, Abomination Brewing, an alternate ending beer company, for a great collaboration. If you've got a beer you'd like me to drink and describe, leave a comment below. If you're a brewer and have one in mind, direct message me on Instagram and let's see what we can do. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time for some cold weather comfort, more homebrew hijinks, and chat once again with Kelly Montgomery from Third Eye Brewing. Remember to hit the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes. I'd love to hear from you, so please follow me on Instagram, 5beerplan2022, and leave a comment to let me know what one of your favorite beers with Pacific Sunrise is. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends.